Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Frankie Boyle!
Hello and welcome to New World Order. Brexit is just never going to stop, is it? It's just endless. It just goes on and on and on. It's like you've jumped out of one of the towers on 9/11 and just before you hit the ground someone opens a manhole cover. They're all positioning themselves for the Tory leadership race. Boris Johnson, a cross between the Incredible Hulk and the Haribo fried egg. Boris Johnson, who said, let's not forget, Boris Johnson said that Britain is wearing a suicide vest and the EU is holding the detonator. It's not a suicide vest then, is it, mate? I honestly think the next Prime Minister will be Michael Gove, because Michael Gove's genius is to represent different things to different parts of the Conservative Party, in much the same way that physically he can resemble both a child and a paedophile. That guy that owns Wetherspoons, he's a big Brexiteer. He said that he's going to stop selling champagne in Wetherspoons. Nobody who's drinking in Wetherspoons has anything to celebrate. Oh, my wife left me 30 years ago and I owe 8 grand to a bookie. Yay! In other news, the Sultan of Brunei announced this week that homosexuality will now be punishable by stoning to death. How disgusting is that? Imagine killing people for expressing love. It's horrifying. And also it's surprising because to me, the Sultan of Brunei sounds like an incredibly flamboyant Glaswegian homosexual. By night, the Sultan of Brunei. By day, Craig Mackenzie. OK, let's get on with the show. Joining me tonight to discuss the week's big topics are Sara, Pascoe, Richard, Osman and Desiree Burch. Hiya, nice to see you all again.
Nice to see you, Frankie.
Have you been following the news this week?
Yeah, I saw one silly story. The frog in Bolivia. There was only one of his type in the whole world. So for 10 years, he was the loneliest animal in the world. And they found a mate for him a couple of months ago. And
another frog, or just something else?
Yeah. And they are having infrequent and brief sex now. So
aren't we all? Oh, yeah. They're a real couple now.
That is a very romantic story.
It's lovely.
Right up until the point where she eats him.
and then it's still a bit romantic.
I love it when female animals eat the male.
Yeah. And you don't have to worry about them, like, is he going to call back? Nope.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. No.
Are you staying for breakfast? You are breakfast.
Yeah.
Great.
So, time for our first motion. Artificial intelligence will solve all our problems, starting with the problem of being alive. Technology is killing us and can barely be bothered to keep up the pretense that it isn't. Facebook have a thing now where if you threaten to commit suicide in your Facebook status, they say they'll inform the authorities within 12 hours. Good news if you were planning on slashing your wrists with a banana. I try and help out with that. I check Facebook every day for people who are threatening to kill themselves, and I try to cheer them up with a quick wee, Frankie likes this. You can't expect social media to have an inherent morality. Neutral in theory, but in the cursed hands of humanity, doomed to destroy us. Over the years, people have tried to warn us about the danger we represented to the planet. Michael Jackson, to his credit, was perhaps the first example of how harmful plastic could be to the next generation. You worried about technology, Sara?
I don't even have a Kindle. I think I'm kind of Amish. I've only just got an iPhone, so I'm not scared of it because I haven't paid any attention to what they can do with it.
That won't stop it harvesting your organs and all that stuff.
I don't think technology is going to harvest Sarah's organs anytime soon.
Because of my drinking.
Well, I suppose the argument is that once AI becomes fully conscious, and it might already be and simply be lying low,
yes.
we will seem to it like a kind of mould.
Yeah.
And it will just, you know, go, get rid of that.
That's how we've treated animals for millennia, so perhaps we deserve it.
Absolutely.
We definitely deserve it.
But
we just don't want it. I'm not worried about technology as much as I'm worried about us and the fact that we never actually think about what the technology can do. It's just kind of like, here's all the fun stuff, but we're going to be surveilling you constantly, and at some point we're going to be harvesting organs or your personality.
I don't see the connection between AI and harvesting organs. Sorry to go back to harvesting organs, but you seem obsessed.
I said it once. But anyway, I have some clips that I hope will convince you.
Okay.
Governments around the world are already using advanced facial recognition systems to track and monitor their own citizens. Leading the field in surveillance technology is China, as seen in this informative and disturbing news report.
Chinese technology firms such as SenseTime are helping the government effort by developing advanced cameras that use artificial intelligence to track just about everything. Police in Beijing have been wearing these glasses that can recognize faces linked to the government's national database to help boost arrests. Wu Fei is CEO of a company that makes the glasses. He claims he doesn't know how the government intends to use his technology.
I have no idea.
Really?
Yes.
Do you trust the government the way they're using your technology?
Sorry, I can't answer this.
You can't answer that.
This is outside our scope of questions.
Do you trust how the government are going to use those mobile execution vans? I have no idea.
My daughter lives in China. She says they use facial recognition for everything. She said on the junction where she lives, they show jaywalkers. Anyone who's jaywalked, they just have a big picture of them, like a wall of shame.
They shame people for jaywalking.
Yeah, because you're not supposed to.
I'd like them to do that in British town centres and then try to introduce the concept of shame. Because we'd all just be looking and go, there's you!
Yeah.
But she was saying there's a city called Hangzhou in the south of China, and her and a few friends had gone down there, and they used a public loo, and she said they had to use facial recognition to get toilet paper out of the thing. So she got some.
Yeah.
Her friend, who's also a resident in China, got some, and a friend who was visiting from the UK got no toilet paper because she was not in the database. So the moral is, take toilet paper to China. But isn't that amazing?
I think there's a thing where we can overstate how effective these things are. So everything is only as good as what's behind it. So we have a lot of CCTV in this country, but behind all those banks of cameras is just like a security guard reading Razzle. You know.
No one's looking at it. They only look at it if something happens.
What is nice, though, is if you walk past one and it kind of goes, and like you're like, yeah. That's right, keep looking.
Yeah.
So, with robots becoming deadlier by the day, it's only a matter of time before the great war between humanity and machines. And this war may already have begun, judging from this worrying yet unsurprising news report on what happened to a robot hitchhiker.
In a huge test of human kindness,
I am Hitchbot, a hitchhiking robot.
This immobile kid-sized robot counted on strangers to get around.
It's like walking around with a celebrity.
I think the opportunity, for people to actually engage unsupervised, with this kind of technology was really part of the charm.
2 weeks ago, Hitchbot set out to hitchhike across America. First, starting in Boston, with hopes strangers would then take it to Times Square, Mount Rushmore, and the Grand Canyon. Hitchbot did pretty well until arriving in Philadelphia, where it got no love from someone in the city of brotherly love. After only 2 weeks in the U.S., the journey ended.
I mean, it's a feel-good story. One less hitchhiker died that week because of Hitchbot.
But that's a perfect encapsulation of, it's not technology, it's people.
That clip shows us the problem with technology. It's not that it's going to be terrifying. It's they make it look cute. We're like, oh, look at that. And that's how they'll get us. They'll make drones, but with eyes like the cat on Shrek, with the big eyes. And literally it'll fly towards you. You go, and then it'll kill you.
So who we need to keep an eye on then is Furbies.
We don't see Frankie talking about Furbies, do we?
Well, I was once caught having a wank by a Furby. What a degrading moment of fatherhood that was.
When you say caught...
I set it off.
Oh, okay.
That is some boast.
Anyway, how we treat robots now may dictate our entire future relationship with artificial intelligence, but the strain is already beginning to show. Here's some grainy footage in which we can clearly hear the struggle between one increasingly frustrated human and her robot helper.
Alexa, play Something's Cooking in My Kitchen by Dana on my Spotify.
I can't find Something's Cooking in My Kitchen by Donna on Spotify.
It's no Donna. Cow. An idiot in an American accent. English or American? English. Oh, Christ. English. Alexa, play Something's Cooking in My Kitchen by Dana.
Here's a sample of Something's Cooking in the Kitchen.
You just hate Scottish people, you cow!
My guess is from the voice that she was a certain type of Scottish woman who announces that they're pregnant by switching to menthol cigarettes.
I love that there was a little plastic shot glass right next to the Alexa.
I thought that was a methadone cup.
Oh, maybe it is.
Maybe it's to drizzle some honey on her granola.
Yeah. And I did like that the man shouting in the background at his Alexa, like a fucking dinner.
Anyway, all too often technology betrays the bias and prejudice of the people who create it. This remarkable phone footage shows two men exposing a flaw in an everyday piece of tech.
That's nice. Okay, Noel, we try now. One to your hand. Two black? Two black. You have to use how racial this thing is. Yeah. You have to use that piece of white. Let's start napkin and show again. Again. Bring your napkin again. Napkin again. Right, put your hand out. What's it called in a hand?
This explains why I'm always in airport bathrooms trying to wash my hands like some kind of off-brand bullshit Jedi. Like, I'm just like... Nothing's happening.
It's very lazy engineering, isn't it? It's the kind of racism which involves not thinking, like thinking white people are the default. I know this is unethical, but I feel like if no one knew what race they were until they were 18, like that could be the ceremony where you found out. Like, that's how you found out, like, oh, I'm white.
So that's, the soap dispenser is essentially the sorting hat.
Yeah.
So, in conclusion, there's no point worrying about technology, especially when we're actually going to be wiped out by the Large Hadron Collider. The Illuminati have created the CERN accelerator to tear a hole in reality for God to fuck. The building of the Large Hadron Collider is a signal that our universe has become sexually mature. Any day now we will see God's phallus pushing into our reality, dominating the skies above Switzerland. We will desperately try to shut the Hadron Collider down, but will only succeed in making the hole tighter. And who knows what God will ejaculate into our dimension? It will probably take the form of ideas, or perhaps one overriding idea. Perhaps the idea that we should build a smaller Hadron Collider in Australia for God to use on his birthday. But there's a twist. The Hadron Collider is actually a cock snare designed to trap God by the cock. And it won't be the Judeo-Christian God either, so there's no point writing in to complain about this bit. The Hadron Collider will trap Kronos, youngest of the Titans. His magnificent penis will span the sky as a time rainbow in all the 19 colours of time. And it is then, in our moment of triumph, that we will realise we have overreached. We won't have trapped Kronos. He will simply have chosen to wear our universe as a sort of Prince Albert. A cock ring with which he will pleasure the infinite folds of the multiverse. Your only consolation, as your reality shakes and creaks on the end of time's throbbing shaft, will be that at least you weren't born in the butt plug universe. That doesn't happen until you die in this one. Next up, free speech is vital. Without it, I would struggle to describe my hate crimes to my children. I personally don't like people who object to speech, and at the same time, I don't like people who are against political correctness. I've found myself a little space where I can fucking hate everybody. Anti-political correctness seems to me to be incredibly lazy and a sort of distraction. I watched Ricky Gervais's new stand-up special the other night, and in it, he does a routine about trans women. Right? Now, I've got nothing but love for trans folk. I think they're a thoroughly oppressed minority. Ricky Gervais does a bit where he talks about, well, if trans women can say that they're a woman, well, I can just say that I'm a chimpanzee. And I was watching it thinking, to be honest, it's no weirder than Ricky Gervais identifying as a stand-up comedian. I mean, we know Ricky Gervais is a brilliant writer, he's a brilliant performer, he's not a stand-up comedian. Just because Ricky Gervais self-identifies as a stand-up comedian, am I supposed to say that he is one? It's political correctness gone mad. So what I think with free speech is I think free speech is a right and not a privilege, but in an unequal society, rights are distributed like privileges. So we've got to be careful. Are we speaking from a position of privilege? Some people only watch this show because they know me from my Guardian columns, and I've got to give them something. Right? That was literally it for the series.
I liked it when you were talking about Kronos' cock earlier.
Yeah. OK, joining us to discuss free speech, please welcome journalist and former barrister Afua Hirsch. So what do you all think? I mean, what do you think, Afua? There's a lot of pressure now on the idea of free speech, isn't there? It's kind of been weaponised by the far right. Is there a point where we say it has to be qualified in some way?
Well, I am very relieved that we have it so that you can make jokes about divine phalluses, because that would be really sad if you weren't free to do so. I do think it's really ironic, the whole free speech debate, because the faction of society who are most vocal about allowing speech that many people consider offensive are also the first group to show their fragility when things that they don't like are said. So, for example, Jon Snow, the Channel 4 news presenter, made an observation of fact that there were a disproportionate number of white people in a pro-Brexit rally and had to apologise for offending white people by pointing out the fact that they exist. And it was so ironic to see the people who wanted that apology being the same ones who always defend speech against minorities and say that it's political correctness gone mad when you're shut down for abusing people because of their ethnicity or faith. And what I often hear is people who have power and privilege and are used to being able to say whatever they want about whoever they want, suddenly getting very upset that they feel power is being taken away from them and distributed more equally, so that free speech is something that everyone is entitled to, but also has to have boundaries. We recognise that. We've got libel and slander laws to protect people from things that are completely untrue being said about them. And I do think it affects people differently. I mean, I just accept that we live in a society where if you look like me and say things that some people don't want to hear, you get a lot of abuse. But I do think a lot of people of colour, people from minorities, find that the way that free speech is currently organised means they're often alone in a space where they're being attacked against a majority who are attacking them. And so it's not a fair marketplace and it's not free.
Awkward as it is to face up to the kind of absolute nature of free speech, is that if it's going to be a moral principle, it has to be universal. So if you're going to say, well, one person can't be offended, then you've got to say everybody can't be offended, you know? And so suddenly you're saying, well, people who are anti-abortion in America, we can't say stuff that'll offend them because to them we're talking about infanticide, you know?
I don't think there's anything wrong with people being offended. I mean, free speech is completely meaningless if you can't say things that offend people. If everyone said nice stuff all the time, we wouldn't need free speech. We need it because people say things that other people don't want to hear. But is it free? Can everyone really contest their ideas equally? Because you'll find that it's not. And so it's interesting to me that the people who defend this free marketplace of ideas aren't the ones actually trying to open up the marketplace to make sure everyone has a say. They're enjoying their monopoly.
It's often the case with the free market.
Yeah, funny that.
That's the thing, when people say, look, people are so quick to take offence these days. Oh, everyone's offended at everything these days. You think, well, do you know what? It's because you're hearing from different people you didn't used to hear from 10 years ago, 15 years ago. People have got a platform they didn't used to have. And so what you were saying is, years ago I didn't have to listen to any objections to what I'm saying, and now I've got to listen to some objections, and I've got to think about what I said, and I've got to justify what I said.
Or sometimes I think it's just confronting that you didn't notice. Sometimes being a white person, that didn't even occur to me. I was just using my soap, having a great day.
Liam Neeson recently caused outrage when he revealed that he once, as a young man, went on the hunt for a black person to beat up out of anger over the rape of a friend. He actually used the words, and he did air quotes, he went, "a black bastard." I don't know that air quotes help. I mean, do we even believe that it happened? I mean, are we to really believe that he went looking for a fight in 1970s Belfast and couldn't find one?
I'm just so grateful that we now know that power walking is a cure for racism, because who knew?
But I mean, he was just power walking like, I gotta get a black bastard.
I found out about that, so I was deeply troubled. I spoke to someone, a priest, who said, it's fine. That's his job. It's literally, Jesus forgives you. It's so difficult to process, because someone's saying, I used to be racist, and I realise what triggered it off, and what shouldn't have been there, and this underlying feeling that blamed a race for an individual's act. All of that is absolutely fine, but then it being contorted by the media and everyone talking about it is the damaging thing.
But that's exactly it. It could have been an honest admission where he said, I had these thoughts and I've analysed them and this is where they come from. They come from living in a racialised society that's implanted these ideas. They come from a media that does racialise a whole group for the wrongdoing of one person. But he didn't do any of that. No. He just said, I went to my priest and I did some power walking and now
it's super cool. Like, I think he thought he was being super woke at the time about like, hey guys, I've had some racist thoughts. And I mean, admittedly, when he did that, I was like, one of them finally admitted it. Thank you very much. You know, but part of the KKK's background was about protecting white femininity, right? You know, so he's literally falling into that same kind of propaganda that he didn't actually sort of expose or recognize. So it's kind of one of those wonderful teachable moments.
I mean, to be fair to Liam Neeson, like, because he's from Northern Ireland, that might be the nicest anecdote that he has. Moving on. Former EDL leader Tommy Robinson has made a career out of claiming that his right to free speech is being curtailed. In this tense and unpredictable ABC profile, we can see that the citizens of Luton are still angered by Tommy's opinions.
Definitely feel there's more tension in the air now that we're walking through here.
Yeah, of course. Luton's a very divided town.
Were you here when you walked through?
I was the leader, mate, I was.
That's racist.
No, it's not, Bob, no.
Why do you think it's racist? Oh dear, what was that? What did they just say to you?
Pussy.
Oh God, I don't know if this is a good idea.
It was clear that Robinson's past would not be quickly forgotten or forgiven.
Don't point your camera at me, I'll break your camera, I'm telling you. Go on, then you got something to say.
What you got something to say?
Come here. What you got to say?
Huh?
Oh
God. Oh God. No.
What you doing? Say something then. Pussies. Go on.
Yeah, I know, man. I'm lucky it's got from that, Bob.
You think he'd have learned how to walk backwards in prison?
And also the amount of power walking he must have done in his time as well.
Hasn't heard him yet.
His whole mob, they're all about Muslim grooming gangs. There's a lot of sex criminals involved in the far right.
Yeah, the thing that went on with Rotherham and the flaws in the system that allowed that to happen should legitimately be criticised, but it's being criticised along a race line by racists.
I do find it really hard to take seriously that Tommy Robinson and the EDL really care about the vulnerable girls who are abused in that and other scandals, because there are really serious problems that led to them being abused. But they only seem to be interested in exploiting it to push this agenda that Muslims are problematic as a presence in Britain, instead of actually looking at how you can safeguard vulnerable children. You know, they're only interested in this minority. And then they try to create a narrative that all Muslims need to be held accountable for the actions of these paedophiles in one or two towns. We never talk about white paedophiles, even though the majority of paedophiles are white. And it's frustrating when he's given a platform in the mainstream to promote that, because it's not a legitimate debate. I think we've got to a really dangerous position where now, if someone like me who's anti-racist and anti-racism is in a debate, there's this need to put me on against a racist, as if racism is like a legitimate opinion. You know, and it's not. If we were talking about rape, if we were talking about the problem of rape, you wouldn't have me on with a pro-rape activist. We accept that pro-rape is not a legitimate stance. But when it comes to racism, pro-racism now apparently is like so normalised that I find myself having to debate people who are openly and overtly racist. And I think it's really worrying because it does send a message that these two positions are equal, then we just have a healthy debate.
And presumably it's less about balance, it's more about entertainment value.
There is
because
it's clickbait.
It's also monetizable now to have these views. You know, the people with social media and stuff like that, if you've got 200,000 Twitter followers or something like that, you can monetize that. And there's certain people who literally just say outlandish things for clicks and follows.
That kind of contrarians.
Exactly, contrarians. It's the attention economy. If you take away the money from them having those opinions, you take away one of the pillars that holds up the type of views we're talking about.
So, divisive political situations mean we have protesters exercising their right to free speech outside Parliament on a daily basis. Here's some shaky phone footage featuring MP Damien Green, who doesn't appreciate hearing from the public in such a direct fashion.
Hello, can I ask how you're feeling about the vote yesterday?
No, you can't, because you just tried to shout over an interview I've done, like you do everyone else.
I didn't. I was singing.
You are the biggest wanker.
Oh, hello. Is that a bit of abuse this morning? What, you just called me a wanker?
I think that was a piece of analysis, political analysis.
So people barrack in politicians. The politicians get very annoyed. But part of me thinks, well, that's part and parcel of being a politician. That is people expressing themselves. It is kind of free speech. And at the same time, the politicians feel that that's harassment. And there's a line, isn't there?
I think when you're bombarded with something a lot, you shouldn't just have to go, yeah, you have to be nice and polite to people who are interrupting interviews and following you down the street with a phone in your face. I do think that's an infringement.
And also, it's real life, so it's frightening.
Although, how does he get off calling the other guy a wanker? Wasn't he the one who got sacked for porn on his computer? Clearly, he was the wanker, right?
He was caught by a Furby.
He's actually a good example of the problem of free speech, because when that happened, when he was accused of lying to the House of Commons and he resigned, and all of these grandees lined up to defend him and say, well, it might look like he did this bad thing, but I know him to be a person of excellent character. And when you look at a student protester on the left, for example, who's accused of something, they don't have all of these big people lining up saying, well, even so, I know that they're a good person. It's just totally unequal. So someone like Damien Green has a level of resilience. But I do think MPs are in a slightly strange situation because part of their job is to be accessible, you know, and I think that people in power need to be treated with respect. Otherwise, they can't do their job. We need to have access to them, and we can't do it if they're constantly afraid.
Was that the Stop Brexit guy there? The guy who shouts Stop Brexit over every interview?
Yes.
That's
with the long poles.
Look, fair play to him, but also fair play to Damien Green. I think both of them, can admit they're probably a bit of a wanker. So I think that was rather a nice democratic exchange between the two.
Well, that's the end of the show. Thanks to my guests, Sara, Pascoe, Richard, Osman, Desiree, Burch and Afua, Hirsch. But before I go, I'd like to leave you with this thought. I've often been rude about David Cameron, but in many ways he sums up the British spirit. He realised something would be difficult, so he gave up. It's Theresa May who has decided to initiate a staring contest with the unblinking third eye of madness. Yet Theresa May still has one final opportunity to win me over, the way she chooses to leave. She could be the first modern leader to do it with proper class. Imagine how we'd rally as a nation if she were to grasp that lectern and bang out the piercing, grief-stricken aria from Madame Butterfly. And as we wept for the infinite possibilities of what she and all of us could have been, the note would climb, the pitch rising continually upwards, cracking the lenses in Robert Peston's glasses, drowning out the anguished cries of the children who live in the walls of the Houses of Parliament. I've never believed there is a paedophile ring at Westminster. It's probably more of a queue. The note rising until May's eyes roll back to become just whites as it escapes the range of human perception and summons the Dolphin King. As an acolyte rests an iridescent cape upon her trembling shoulders, she steps from the riverside terrace of Parliament, onto the Dolphin King's back, and as he takes her off up the Thames, she rams a golden flute into his blowhole to play I Did It My Way. No doubt she'll actually just stand in her walk-in fridge screaming for a week and then get a book deal. Oh well, good night.